In November 2014, 5 dead bodies were discovered one after another, scattered around Kiambu County in the outskirts of Nairobi. The bodies all belonged to the same family known as the Magu family. First to be discovered was the lady of the house, Lydia Wangui, her body badly cut up and partially burnt. Later, the bodies of the rest of her family, that is her husband, Paul Magu, her 5-year-old daughter, and her 2 sons aged 8 and 9 would be found in different locations. This leading to a mystery that left many Kenyans scratching their heads and also leading to the most unexpected suspect. So, who are the Magus and how did they find themselves in this situation? That is what we are trying to unravel today, but I have to warn you that this case is full of very strange things. Religion, rituals, murders, and all sorts of bizarre things. Therefore, viewer discretion is advised. Hello folks, welcome back to another episode of The Crime Gist. My name is Damisa. Paul Magu was born in 1979 in Kiambu County to Samuel Mohio and Kezia Wambui. His mom was a primary school teacher, while his father was a farmer and businessman. Samuel and Kezia had 5 kids, that is 2 girls and 3 boys, among them Paul Magu. Since he was a young boy, Paul had a strong passion for education. It may be safe to say that he probably got that from his mom, who was a teacher. Paul was a bright student who attended various local primary schools before joining Alliance Boys High School. After passing his high school exams with flying colors, he went on to pursue a degree in law at the University of Nairobi. 4 years later, Paul would graduate from Nairobi University with a degree in law, earning him a spot at the Kenya School of Law to pursue a postgraduate diploma, which would allow him to practice law in the country. After his admission to the bar, he joined a prominent law firm in Nairobi, where he quickly rose through the ranks to become a successful lawyer over the years. In the year 2005, when Paul was 26 years of age, he married 21-year-old Lydia Wangui, a beautiful and ambitious woman who shared his passion for life. The two, over the years, would go on to be blessed with 3 children, that is 2 boys and a girl. Paul Magu's life seemed perfect and he was able to afford his family a nice home in Pipeline Estate along Thika Road. Lydia stayed home and took care of the kids while Paul went out to work in the law firm and provide for the family. However, as the family grew, Lydia would get overwhelmed, and so she and Paul decided to employ a house help known as Margaret Njoki to help in taking care of the home and the kids. Paul and Lydia's marriage was by all standards going well. The family was known to share meals and prayers together. They were described by neighbors as a humble, religious, and quiet family. It therefore came as a surprise when in November of 2014, Lydia Wangui, a then 30-year-old mother of 3, went missing under mysterious circumstances. The morning of November 23, 2014 was a Sunday like any other. That morning, the Magus had breakfast together and everything seemed normal. After breakfast, Paul Magu called for the house help Njoki and sent her to the shops to buy soda. When she came back with the soda, Magu took the soda and immediately sent her back to the shops to buy some porridge flour. Grocery shopping in that household was always done by Lydia. So, Njoki requested to consult with Lydia on what was the best type of flour to buy, but Paul Magu told her that Lydia had already left for church after breakfast. So, she went to the shops and came back with the porridge flour. But as she went about her business in the kitchen, she overheard the kids asking their father about their mom's whereabouts. She heard Paul tell them that their mom had left with their family friend, Pastor Ann, to go for prayers that Sunday morning. However, by night time, Lydia Magu was still not back home. Paul was able to convince the kids that their mom was just running late, urging them to go to bed. Not quite sure of where their mom was, but choosing to trust their dad, they all retired to bed that night. By the following day, Monday, November 24th, 2014, Lydia was still not home. This worried her house help Njoki quite a bit. It was not in Lydia's character to be away from home for that long. But since Paul Magu himself didn't look worried, Njoki decided not to think much of it. That morning, Paul Magu asked Njoki to get the kids ready so he could take them out for shopping. She did as requested, and at around 10 a.m., Paul Magu left in the family car in the company of his 3 children. Njoki waved them goodbye, not knowing that that would be the last time she would ever see those kids. At around 2 p.m. the same day, Paul returned home alone without his 3 children. He went straight into his room, had a change of clothes before leaving again in his car, but this time for his parents' home in Kiganjo, Thika. He did not say a word to Njoki before leaving. So, at this point, no one knew where his wife or kids were since they all hadn't returned home. After Paul Magu left that afternoon, Njoki, who by now had sensed that something was off, decided to walk into his bedroom. There, she noticed that the room looked neat with fresh bed sheets. Upon taking a closer look, she noticed some blood stains on the wall and on the floor, and what looked like teeth and bone fragments. This got her even more concerned, and she began making calls and asking around for Lydia. However, no one had heard from her and her phone wasn't going through. When Paul Magu got to his parents' home that evening, he found his dad, Mr. Samuel Mohio, out in the farm. His mom was not home. She was away in Mombasa visiting her daughter, that is Paul's sister. His father, upon seeing Paul, noticed that he didn't seem like his usual self. When he asked him if everything was okay, Paul told his dad that he was just feeling weak because he hadn't eaten since Sunday morning. Sunday morning, if you are keen, is the day that his wife disappeared. Paul hung out with his dad at the farm for a while before leaving on foot, saying that he was going out for a walk. He was gone for quite some time. However, when he came back home that evening, he was covered in dirt and mud. He told his dad that he had been mugged and robbed on his way home. His father would later say that he was acting out of character and looking very disturbed. All this time, Paul's father was still not aware that Lydia and the kids were missing. That information hadn't reached him yet. So that evening, he made dinner, which Paul declined to eat, and went to bed. In the night, Paul could be heard talking to himself as if he was having nightmares. The next day, November 25th, Paul was still acting very strange. His father, Mr. Mohio, was shocked beyond words when he walked in on Paul in his room, dressed in his mom's skirt and blouse. This struck him as very odd, and he was by now convinced that something was very off with Paul. On his dad's orders, Paul quickly removed his mom's clothes, dressed up in his own, and left the compound in his car without telling his father where he was going. His father, worried by his out-of-character actions, began calling his wife Lydia. He thought Lydia would shed some light on why Paul was behaving so strangely. However, her phone was off, which also struck him as very unusual. He had no idea that at that very hour that he was attempting to reach her, her body was being discovered. She was found murdered and her body dumped in a thicket near Paradise Lost along Kiambu Road, with some of her body parts partially burned. Mr. Mohio did not know this. Some hours went by as he waited for Paul, but by evening he hadn't come back home. This got him very worried, and so he called Paul's brother, Andrew Kamau, to explain the situation. When he called, he found out that his son, Andrew, had just received information about the discovery of Lydia's body. Sad and worried sick, they all frantically started looking for Paul Magu and the kids and reported them missing. Tragically, the following day, November 26th, Paul Magu was found involved in a fatal accident at Ngoliba on Thika-Garissa Highway. His car was found parked at the side of the road with the engine still running. Witnesses say that he threw himself in front of a speeding lorry. He was pronounced dead at the scene. After Paul Magu and Lydia Wangoi's bodies were found, the search for their missing kids intensified. All 3 kids were students at Garden Estate Academy. Judging from the tragic events surrounding their parents, there was little to no hope of finding the kids alive. Sadly, on December 1st, the last-born child, 5-year-old Tiffany Muthoni's body, was found in a thicket near Tatu City with acid burns and a deep cut at the back of the head. The fate of the other 2 kids was still unknown at this point. Armed with sniffer dogs, the police, friends, and relatives spent the next 2 days searching for the other 2 children. The family had indefinitely suspended burial plans for the deceased family members until the fate of the missing boys was known. On December 3rd, 2014, the 2 missing Magu boys, Aileen and Ryan, were found dead near the spot where Tiffany's body was found. The realization of what had occurred sent chills through the spines of a lot of people. How could an entire family die in such a mysterious way? Who had killed them and why? The police investigations first pointed to the fact that Paul Magu had killed his family before jumping onto a speeding lorry on the Thika-Garissa Highway. But as the mystery unfolded, these investigations would lead down a very dark path. The police found evidence in the Magus' home that quickly linked the killings to very unusual things. They discovered a shrine, or what the Magus called a prayer room, in their house. In there, they found curse books, CDs, oils, and other paraphernalia that pointed to cult activities and religious cultism. When they talked to Njoki, the house help, and other people who knew the family, they found that this room was said to be frequented by a family friend and lady pastor by the name of Pastor Ann Wanyoro. As if confirming their suspicion, investigations revealed that Pastor Ann Wanyoro was the last person to be seen with the Magus before their death, and that she had been with the family 4 days prior to the killings. Ann had visited the Magu home and spent 3 days with them, praying and conducting what others saw as cultic things in their prayer room between November 16th to November 19th. 4 days after this, Lydia had gone missing. Key witnesses told of the strange relationship they had seen develop between Paul Magu and this lady pastor. The 2 had grown so close that people suspected them of having an affair. They believed that she had a hand in their deaths and that the rituals could have been a part of a larger cultic or religious ritual that contributed to their deaths. Several key evidences pointed to the same. Anne soon became the main suspect in this case, and the police swiftly arrested her. So who is this Anne Wanyoro? Anne Wambui Wanyoro was born in 1975 in central Kenya. She was passionate about the church, and it was her dream to eventually preach and cater to the Lord's flock. So she studied hard for this and eventually earned a degree in theology. Anne Wanyoro's passion for her faith and her ability to connect with people quickly made her a popular figure in her community. She started her own church, which quickly grew in size and influence. She began to build a following, and her message of hope and healing resonated with many. Wanyoro met Paul Magu, a then successful lawyer, in 2007. She met him through his mom, Kezia, a then friend of Anne Wanyoro. However, sometime after the 2 were introduced, Paul's mother cut all ties and kept her distance from Anne Wanyoro. She would later say that she wasn't comfortable around Wanyoro and felt like she was a walking red flag. However, her son Paul continued to see Pastor Anne Wanyoro, and the 2 eventually developed a very close friendship. Paul Magu and Pastor Anne Wanyoro would become inseparable. And soon, people started to notice that Paul had started acting differently and was making some very questionable life choices. Paul's mother, Kezia, noticed that her son stopped visiting her and had become very distant. He stopped attending his previous church, which was Faith Evangelistic Ministries, and joined the Shower of Praise ministry, where Miss Anne Wanyoro was a pastor. Anne's church was affiliated with a controversial Nigerian pastor known as T.B. Joshua. She would often travel to Nigeria to attend Prophet T.B. Joshua's church, and soon, Paul Magu started following her to Nigeria. Between 2009 and 2014, Paul traveled to Nigeria more than 20 times, often accompanied by Anne Wanyoro. The two would return from Nigeria with anointing oil, which they used during prayers. But the crazy thing is, Paul had managed to drag his wife Lydia along with him. Lydia would once in a while accompany Paul and Anne to Nigeria to bring back this anointing oil. Paul Magu got so indoctrinated in this church stuff that he decided to quit his well-paying lawyer job to focus on the church. He started directing all his money to Anne Wanyoro and the church, leaving nothing for his family to live on. It was said that he even began paying school fees for Anne Wanyoro's kids and even bought her a car. He would drop everything in a heartbeat to cater to her. He became like her puppet, all while she continued to act as a friend and mentor to the Magu family and referring to herself as a prophet. Anne Wanyoro would often visit the Magu family home in Pipeline Estate in Ruiru. There, they would all pray in what they called the prayer room and perform what was described as cultic activities using this anointing oil and other items they brought from Nigeria. She would sometimes even spend the night in that room. Investigations revealed that for 3 straight days, that is November 16th to November 19th, which was days before the bizarre deaths, she had performed these cultic rituals at the Magus residence. Other telltales that this was more than met the eye was the fact that Wanyoro was also found to be consistently in communication with Paul Magu throughout the period before and during the murder incidents. This raised suspicions that she might have been involved in the murders. Another strange sign was that after his death, it was found that Paul Magu had transferred ownership of the bulk of his properties to Pastor Anne Wanyoro in a will that he had deposited with his lawyer. This raised more questions about the true nature of their relationship and potential motives for the murders. It was significantly suspicious, and officers believed that Pastor Anne Wanyoro had crucial information concerning the murders of the family. These pieces of evidence collectively linked Pastor Anne Wanyoro to the murders and led to her arrest and subsequent trial. She was facing 2 charges, that of aiding Paul Magu in killing himself and also having a hand or possibly having planned the murders of Lydia and her 3 kids. She denied these allegations and in January 2016 was released on a 2 million bond awaiting trial. The trial began in March 2016 and several individuals testified against Anne Wanyoro. Margaret Njoki, the house help, was the first to testify. Njoki narrated of how she opened Paul Magu's bedroom only to find bloodstains on the walls and on the floor. She also told the court that the suspect, Pastor Anne Wanyoro, had spent 3 straight days in the Magus residence before his wife Lydia disappeared. She told of how she heard Paul Magu telling his kids that their mother had left with Pastor Anne that Sunday morning. Kezia Wamboi, Paul's mother, testified that she suspected that her son had an affair with Pastor Wanyoro. She said that she had seen them together several times and believed that they were more than friends. She believed that the deaths were as a result of religion brainwash. Kezia Wamboi said that her late son shocked the family when he said that he was leaving his well-paying job to concentrate on serving God. She said that her son had accumulated a lot of wealth while working as a lawyer, but had disposed a lot of his properties to fund the work of God. Since he resigned from his job and joined that church, her son had changed and become withdrawn. Her spirited efforts to convince Paul Magu to ditch Anne's church had fallen on deaf ears. Kezia said that she learned about her son's disappearance when she had gone to visit her daughter in Mombasa. She immediately took a flight back to Nairobi, and upon reaching her son's home in Ruiru, she was told that the bodies of the Magus had been found in different locations. Paul's father, Samuel Mohio, also took the stand to shed light on the last days of Paul's life. The investigators also brought in all the evidence they had collected. They had found the shrine with curse books and CDs and anointing oil. In this room, they had also found a book titled Murder Most Foul, which speaks of ritualistic killings and disposal of bodies, and was believed to be the last book that Paul Magu was reading. In the parking space at the Magus residence, they had found a burnt-out area that had taken the form of a human body. This, they believed, was where Magu had attempted to burn his wife's body. In the bedroom, there were blood stains on the floor and the wall, and also some teeth belonging to Lydia Wangui. The theory was that on 24th November, after breakfast, when Paul sent Njoki to the shop to buy soda, he attacked Lydia in their bedroom before dragging her body to the parking space where he attempted to burn it. It is believed that when Njoki came back, he sent her back to the shop and attempted to carry the body back to his bedroom, parking his car over the burnt spot. He kept the body in his bedroom until the following day, when he put it in a sack, loaded it in his car, and drove off, taking the kids with him. He would then murder the kids and dispose of their bodies before traveling to his parents' home, where he would also end his own life. It was believed that Pastor Anne Wanyoro encouraged Paul Magu to commit these acts and knew more than she was telling. It is not known whether Paul Magu killed his kids himself or whether he handed them over to someone to kill them. What is known for a fact is that Pastor Anne Wanyoro was right in the middle of all this mess. During this trial, Anne was not cooperative at all. She portrayed very weird behavior in the courtroom, like opting to pray when she was asked to respond. She would burst into prayers and quote Bible verses, showing the extent of her fanaticism, even at a time when she was facing very serious allegations. Anne Wanyoro's case is still ongoing. I'll admit it's very frustrating when justice is delayed. As at 2024, it has been 10 years since the Magus were found dead, and we are not any closer to knowing who exactly killed Lydia and the kids and drove Paul to end his life. We have so many unanswered questions like, was it Magu himself who killed his family, or did he hand them over to someone to do it? Did Anne convince him to murder his family and end his life? Why did she have such an influence over this man to a point that he gave up a good career, devoted his life to pleasing her, and left the majority of his property to her? It's hard to know exactly how a well-learned lawyer like Paul Magu would fall for such unnatural religious brainwash. Many, including his mom, said that he was a very harmless person and couldn't even stand seeing a chicken being slaughtered. So how exactly did he get the heart to kill his family? But whether he even did it himself is still quite unknown to this day. I'm not sure if we will ever know what exactly transpired, but I sure hope we do. Despite all these questions, one thing is very clear. These deaths were extremely chilling. The Magu family was laid to rest on Tuesday, December 9, 2014 in a mass grave in Kimichu, Thika. As for Anne Wanyoro, she awaits for the day that this case will be concluded. For now, it's still hanging over her head and ours as well, as we wait to see just how the justice system will conclude this. I'll be sure to bring you guys an update when this case moves forward. Thank you for tuning in to the Crime Gist. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out. As usual, please don't forget to subscribe, to like and to share this episode with other true crime junkies like yourself. Until next time, bye-bye.